Hi, I'm Gabby Awad, your host for today's show, Buying Customers. Some know me as the coach on wheels because I have a YouTube channel where I coach while riding on my motorcycle. Check it out, hit that subscribe button, and click that notification bell if you want to be updated with those episodes. As a business and executive coach, I help business owners, leaders, and teams grow. I help them achieve their goals through business re-education, coaching, mentoring, and business advising. My mission is to help businesses and leaders grow. By the way, we would love to hear from you in real time during our show. If you are listening live or listening to one of the recordings, you can always connect and interact with us on social media or by using the IBGR app for Android and iOS. Just search IBGR on Android Play or Apple Store, and then you can listen to current programming, on-demand podcasts, read the show notes, stay current on IBGR news, and connect with us on air. Take IBGR with you wherever you go. If this is your first time listening, welcome, and if you are a returning listener, welcome back. In this Buying Customers, episode 9 of season 4, we are going to talk about your business newsletters and the need to make it digital, consistent, and with value content. I call this episode E-Zine Your Newsletter. More specifically, we are going to talk about your newsletter and what to put in it, what makes it successful, how to increase opening rate or reading rate, and where to send it, how to send it, to whom, what to say, what tools are available to help you develop your E-Zine. Once we finish our talk today, you should be able to know exactly how to put together strategies that work, yet they don't cut into your profit margins. More importantly, you will have a selection of developed strategies to choose from. At the end, like always, we will jump into an action plan to develop your E-Zine success. Make sure you take note while we are talking, and when you come to write your first few words, you might need to refer back to this show notes. So go now and download from ibgr.network. A newsletter is not something new. All businesses and others quote. However, today people are not reading enough, and when they see newsletter in their mailbox as a subject, they immediately delete it. This is because businesses abused it and used it as a platform to voice their achievements and or just, their offers, and they want to sell something. If you can increase the opening rate of your newsletter by letting people know that it is all about them, value, and value every time you publish your newsletter, then they might consider you as a business of value, adding value to your customers and therefore their customers. See, I believe in value first. Value in everything you do. Value while networking, value while selling, value when serving, value after the sale, and value in earning referrals. You don't ask for referrals, you earn them first, then you ask for them. However, let's get back to the basics. What is a newsletter and what is its purpose? From now on, let's call it E-Zine, since we live in the digital era and we need to benefit from what it can serve. What can an E-Zine do for you or your business? Your E-Zine will set you apart from your competition and create value that exceeds your customers' expectations. Keep this in mind. Your E-Zine should touch every customer with a value message. Keep this in mind. Write it in bold, in another color, highlight it. Your E-Zine is a value communicator, and if done right, it will be welcomed by your customers, your prospects, and everyone your business touches. Yes, it might contain promotional news and offers about your products and your services, but it should be presented in a manner that those messages are not dominant, they are subtle. An E-Zine is a way to generate and nurture leads, build loyalty and repeat business for less money, and with 1,000 times more effective than an ad or a promotion. During our talk today, please remember that this is a do-it-yourself guide to creating an effective newsletter. Now, it's time to get started. There are customers out there just waiting to come and deal with you. You just need the right way to tell them, come on, we're open, come on, do business with us. So what is a successful newsletter? Basically, any newsletter which is widely read and results in increased interactions and eventually sales can be considered successful. The objective of your newsletter is not to bore people with uninteresting articles where you just talk about yourself and your achievements. The objective is to provide valuable help, tips, and how-tos while reminding them of who you are and to get them to buy from you in a subtle way. As you probably know, to get a new customer, you need to invest money and time in marketing. This means that you have an acquisition cost for each new customer. Your acquisition cost is determined by how much your marketing costs and divided by how many customers it brings into your business. Once you've calculated this figure, you can then work out how many times each customer needs to purchase from you before they become profitable. In the average business, this means selling them 2.5 times before you begin to make a profit. We talked about that acquisition cost and lifetime value in season 3. Just go to goodsession.me and listen to the recorded podcasts, or at any major podcast platform like Apple, Android, and Amazon. Your newsletter then is one of the tools that you can use to ensure that your past customers come back on a regular basis also. If your customers buy from you only once, you're actually losing money each time you acquire a new customer. By using a valuable newsletter, you increase the number of times they do business with you, thus turning them into a profitable customer. But what makes a successful newsletter? Again, there are a number of key elements which combined go to making up a successful newsletter. The most important of these is the content. Content, value, content. Another important consideration is any call to action or offers you are making it is, or entertaining your newsletter is. If you don't make great offers, it will not bring you additional sales. It will not convert leads into customers. In what follows, we will discuss newsletter headlines that work, how to position visuals for maximum impact, and which fonts have the best recognition. But we will also talk about the delivery channels and the tools to deliver that content. Before we jump into that, it's critical that you understand again the principle of testing and measuring. Just the same way you would try different campaigns to see which one worked the best, you need to be prepared to change your newsletter around and find out which approach worked best. And once it does, keep on it. Remember, it's always better to deliver to 100 recipients that don't work than what 10,000 recipients. Even if you love your newsletter and everyone who sees it goes crazy, it's important to keep your head and avoid going too far too soon. So start with a small crowd. Take it slowly at first, check the response with that pilot crowd, and measure the opening rate and call to action and the clicks. If that clicked with you, if you are happy with this engagement, then increase the number of recipients. Of course, nothing is ever that certain in marketing or in business in general, and you really have to wait and see, test and measure, change and adapt. Over time, you may notice that one version might seem to be doing much impact or better impact than the other. This is the one that you should keep, or the tone or the voice that you should keep. Keep this in mind. Test and measure. Do it on a small uh, pilot crowd first, and then extrapolate slowly but surely. You can benefit from online tools to do that. The A/B campaigns where you test the interaction and the opening rate of your audience, and then change your tone to reach better customers in your opening rate and click to action. We are now going to take a short 2 minutes break, and when we return, we will continue with our topic for today, your newsletter, your E-Zine, or E-Zine your newsletter. So what are the strategies that will make your newsletter a successful one, a one that people want to open and read again and again? If you are looking for more one-on-one help to grow your business, check out our website, goodsession.me or ibgr.network, where you can check the directory of our vetted professionals in all 4 of our market segments. Just go to ibgr.network, go to the Home tab, then Us tab, then choose your market segment, and then you'll have a list of all the hosts that you can select from. You have been listening to Buying Customers. I am your host for today, Gabi Awad, and we will be back after a short break. And we are back. And today we are talking about e-zining your newsletter, or how to digitalize your newsletter for a greater impact. You are listening to IBGR Network. I am your host, business and executive coach, Gabby Awad. This episode of Buying Customers, we are talking about your e-zine. You can go to our website at ibgr.network and download the show notes. Before the break, we talked about what defines a successful newsletter and the importance of testing and measuring your e-zine impact. Just as your newsletter is an advertisement for your business, the headlines are the ads for your newsletter text. Let's compare these two headlines if you want. The first one, how to make more money. The second one is how 2,000 Lebanese SMEs are making $30,000 per week every week without fail. Now, which one would you read? Would you open and read depending on the title of the newsletter? Of course, the second headline, because definitely it stimulates a hell lot more curiosity in you. Having said that, you can never be entirely sure which one will work the best. This is why testing and measuring is so important. Now let's jump into the 7 steps to newsletter success. Step 1, ask who. Who are your target audience? Who are your target readers? If you don't know who your target market is, it's almost impossible to attract them. Imagine trying to get a date without knowing which gender you are interested in. You would have to take the let's see approach. Let's see. Unfortunately, the let's see method of marketing tends to fail every time. You won't see anything, especially in the way of repeat business. You need to know exactly who you are dealing with or who you want to deal with, what their interests are, and in what's going to make them buy your product or service. If you don't know, you're really just taking your chances. Let's see. So you have to be specific. Who are the people most likely to be interested in your product or service? What is their age, their gender, their income? What are their interests? If you don't know what they're interested in, how can you design a newsletter that will capture their attention? They want to read or watch things in your newsletter that would be interested to them. If you only focus on writing stories that you find interesting rather than the ones that your customers find interesting, your newsletter will fail. Step 2, where to send your newsletter. Ask most businesses where they send their newsletters, and you will get the same response. Past customers, or existing customers, or the one who already did a transaction with us. Of course, this is exactly who you want to send your newsletter to, but aren't you forgetting someone? All the businesses I coach tend to forget this key person, or let's call a target. These are unconverted prospects, leads, suspects, prospects. You should also be adding those people to your newsletter mailing list. The reason for this is quite simple. The fact that they didn't buy from you the first time doesn't mean that they won't buy from you in the future. I have people in my newsletter who've been nurtured for 2 years before signing a coaching agreement with me. You invested money and time in getting them to visit you or to know more about you. So why not invest a little more in getting them to come back through nurturing those using your newsletter, nurturing those leads using your newsletter? There can be a variety of reasons why people don't buy from you in the first place. Perhaps you didn't have the exact model they were after, or maybe they weren't in a position to buy at that time, or maybe it did not fit their expectations as a product or service. By keeping in contact with them, you give yourself the chance of doing business with them in the future, even if they have bought from someone else. You might be able to pick up some business from them for their, parts and accessories if you sell them cars, let's say. When you really think about it, the more people who read your newsletter, the more leads you capture and nurture, and the more sales you will make from it. All you need to make your newsletter a success is a database of prospects to mail it to. There are basically three ways to acquire a mailing list. You can buy one. This is a quick but expensive way to get a mailing list. Most databases you can provide you with lists that target a particular geographic or demographic segments of a specific population. For example, you can buy a list which will give you the names and the addresses and the emails of women aged between 30 to 55 with an income of over $40,000 per year who live in a 7 kilometers radius of your store. You can buy this, it's available. While these lists can provide you with a very specific list, they tend to be far more expensive than general lists. Costs will normally dictate how targeted you can be when buying a specific list. Remember, the idea of having a newsletter is to keep in contact with people who have already dealt with your business in the past, who you are seeking to convert into new customers. Sending your newsletter to a cold list is not as effective as mailing to someone who already knows you, who already contacted you, still did not buy from you. Second strategy is to mail to someone else's list. Find that non-competing company that have a similar target market to yours and simply ask them if you could mail to their list or include your newsletter with the one of their upcoming mail out. The success of this relies on you having a good relationship with the business in question. Although this method can be hit and miss, it can be a very inexpensive way of reaching potential customers through that strategic partner. Once again, this method is not as effective as dealing with people who are familiar with your business, but you can filter from it later on with the people who took action on your newsletter by clicking that button or booking a meeting with you or downloading something as a freebie from your website. The third strategy is to create the effective to get. The quickest way to compile your own list is to run probably a competition or give something for free or do free workshops or webinars. Now, to enter this competition, or let's say a competition, people simply need to write their names and emails on a web form, provided that they have something of valuable that they can get as a result of them opting in. By offering one of your products or services as a prize, you have a greater chance of reaching only those people who are genuinely interested in what you have to sell. Consider old school, the thinking, old school thinking. You can print tickets and book a venue to run the competition also. Approach a shopping center, a sporting club, or a retail outlet to see if they let you leave your tickets there and, within a box at their counter. Alternatively, you can run it as a cutout, the coupon competition in the local paper or digital promo code if your website caters for that. Of course, you can always just ask people if they'd like to receive your newsletter on a regular basis by opting in while visiting your website for the first time. Most people will probably say yes. And you can then either have them fill out a form with their name and email or take their details from your accounts. Step 3 towards a successful e-zine or newsletter is what? What do you need to say? What's the content? We'll cover more about the content of your newsletter next, but for the moment, we need to look at what it is you want from the people reading your newsletter. What do you want them to do? Although a newsletter has the benefits of keeping your name in front of customers, at the end of the day, it needs to bring you more business. So understanding that we want to make sales and get increased revenue, we need to look at the style in which we write our newsletter. People will only read newsletters that contain interesting, valuable content. People will not read a newsletter which is just one big sales pitch. The challenge to sell without looking like you are trying to sell is key here. Quite simply, we need to do both. People will tolerate some selling messages, providing there is enough non-selling content to make it worth their while reading. The easiest way to do this is by featuring content on new products or services that you offer. By discussing the benefits of these products, you can get the reader in a position where they are ready to buy. Another way to go about it is to simply position yourself as the expert on a particular topic or product or service. Discuss how the product works and what to look for when buying it. Customers will begin to view you as the expert and will come to you seeking further advice. Of course, your content will be to buy the particular model that you happen to have in stock. But when you compare your product to other products or service to other services, these subtle messages will come across. The main thing is that there must be a subtle message you are conveying. This may be in the form of an offer, an important point of difference, a list of the benefits of dealing with you, or why it is worthy to buy your product. We're now going to take a short 2 minutes break, and when we get back, we will continue with our topic for today. And we are back, and in this episode of Buying Customers at IBGR Network, we are discussing E-Zine Your Newsletter. Go to our website at ibgr.network and download the show notes. Before the break, we discussed 3 steps to newsletter success. Who are your target audience, where to send your newsletter, and what do you need to say in your newsletter. Now let's continue with the remaining 4 steps towards E-Zine success. Step 4, how? How to write your newsletter and what you should be talking about in that newsletter. Firstly, you're going to need a name for your newsletter. Branding is everything in marketing. Take a bit of time to think about the title or the name that you would give to your newsletter. The right name can make a huge difference. There are basically 2 ways to approach it: a humorous name or a serious name. A funny name can really get the ball rolling for you, especially if it's a clever play on words. A good example of an effective wordplay would be a man's clothing store with a newsletter called The Well-Dressed Male instead of man. Be careful when choosing a humorous name, however. If yours is the type of business that deals with serious problems or conservative clients, then it wouldn't do to have an amusing newsletter title. Can you imagine the type of negative reaction you would get if you were an impotence clinic with a newsletter called The Boner Bulletin? Sometimes you're better off to play on the safe side. Another obvious but often forgotten item that needs to be included are your contact details. I've seen it happen many times before, where people simply forget to include their emails, their address, their phone numbers. Now, some people may argue that their customers already know where they are and would probably have their phone number and contact details already. But what if they pass the newsletter on to a friend? Besides, you need to make it easy for people if you want them to take action. If people have to go to a lot of effort just to find your phone number, they more often than not just give up. So include all the relevant information, including your email address, website address, social media addresses, etc. If you have a website that you regularly update, it's well worthwhile advertising. In fact, will give it the exposure it needs and let you get your site making you money. Plus, it will improve your SEO if you backlink your website in all your newsletter content. So let's take a look at the other sections and inclusions that will make your newsletter a success. USP and guarantee. Basically, your uniqueness comes from one of 7 areas: either quality or price or service or delivery, speed, convenience, or experience. Regardless of what it is, you need to promote it at every available opportunity. And there's no better place to start than with your newsletter. And there's no place that you can better than you can keep on reminding people of your uniqueness. Your very own newspaper is that place. You should only be talking about things that are relevant to your business or of interest to your readers. Don't try to report on things that have no relevance. Always remember that the main aim of your newsletter is to make sales eventually. You can talk about product reviews. This is easily the second most exciting section you can include in any newsletter. By doing an in-depth review of the product or technique or your service, you position yourself as the expert and therefore justify the extra expenditure. Or you can do a comparison or just a test run against other products in the market. It's always a good idea when doing these comparisons to have a picture of your product beside a summary table where a direct comparison can be made to other products or services. The summary table should show how each product or service performs in certain tasks or functions or benefits. But stress that this is not an official test and only shows your experience with the product and shouldn't be taken as gospel. You can include tips and tricks in your newsletter as a section. The best way to ensure that readers not only read the E-Zine, but also look forward to each new issue and even collect and keep them for reference is to include some handy hints and tips and tricks. Imagine a quick service garage, for example, that includes a special section on how to prepare your car for winter or how to check your fluids before your road trip. This sort of free information is sure to be a winner, even with people who aren't looking to know much about cars. Clients will hold on to this information so they can refer back to it at a later stage or date. You can talk about also upcoming events. People like to know what's going on and hate to miss out on something special. There are a number of things that you can include here, like upcoming sales, upcoming promotions, to products that are due for release, workshops that you are preparing, masterminds, etc. If you don't have a lot of events throughout the year and you struggle to find something to include here, then maybe that's telling you something. You should really have no trouble in finding 2 or 3 things to put in the events section. And if you are having trouble, it's time to put your thinking cap on and think, what can I do to promote my business? You can also have a section introducing your team. Let readers feel that they are part of what's happening in your business. They're not only being kept up to date with upcoming events and changes to your stock or services, but they relate to you and your team. A good way to add to this feeling of being part of the team is by introducing your team members in a profile section, for example. You see, people buy from people, not from companies. By letting people know a bit more about who they will be dealing with, it makes them feel more comfortable buying from them. Another way to introduce your team is by having them write an article in your newsletter. This is a great way to demonstrate that your team really do know their stuff. By letting them showcase their skills, you'll also improve their morale and lighten your workload. Of course, you can also get someone from outside writing you a specific section or the whole newsletter. I have many business owners complaining to me that writing so much of their time, they all made the mistake of believing that they had to write it themselves. The main thing is not who writes it, but it actually gets done. Simply approach someone from an associated type of business to write a column for you. Now, by associated business, I don't mean one of your competitors, of course. I mean someone who works in a similar field that can give you irrelevant content. Other possible sections to include in your E-Zine are customer stories. You can include things like congratulations on new birth, new engagements, or perhaps even promotions that they've received at your business. Listing some of their success stories may also make for good reading. Maybe they've just won a sporting event or their child has just won a baby contest. Whatever it is, it's worth putting it into your newsletter. Do it. One way you can make this section pay for itself is by including your customers also testimonials. Imagine if you owned a beauty clinic and you gave 5 lucky customers a facial product for 6 months. At the end of that time, you could interview them to find out what they thought of and to talk about it. By mentioning the success your customers have had with your product, you're sure to make more sense. Do it, and do it as a video testimonial. We live in an era where video matters. Search engines, social media platforms, their algorithms now give high priority to videos, then to photos, and then to text. So have this video testimonial handy, do it with your phone, add it to your newsletter, or in your newsletter, link to it to your YouTube channel, but do it. If you can't do it, ask the client to write you a testimonial, put their headshot in your newsletter. Let them relate to people like them who benefited from your product or service so that they can relate to when they decide to buy from you. Now we are going to take a short 2 minutes break. When we return, we will continue with today's topic, E-Zine your newsletter. We will do a recap and we will leave you with an actionable game plan that you can implement tomorrow in your business. Don't forget that you can always connect and interact with us on social media or by using the IBGR app for Android and iOS, which is already available for download. Just search IBGR on Android Play or Apple Store, and you can listen to current programming, on-demand podcasts, read the show notes, stay current on IBGR news, and connect with us on air. Take IBGR with you wherever you go. You have been listening to Buying Customers on IBGR Network. I am Gabi Awad, and we will be back after a short break. We are back, and you are listening to IBGR Network. I am your host, business and executive coach Gabi Awad, for today's show, Buying Customers. And today we are talking about e-zining your newsletter or e-zine your newsletter. Go to our website at ibgr.network and download the show notes for the coming action plan. Before the break, we talked about the how to write your newsletter and what you should be talking about. Let's now continue with the remaining 3 steps to e-zine success. Step 5 would be, how big should your newsletter be? How much do you want to say? These are the 2 questions that will dictate how long or concise your e-zine should be. Your target reader's preferences and your business type. If you are in the medical research business, then you can write pages and pages of content as much, as I care, but other than that, you need to be, succinct and neat, straight to the point. People are not reading anymore, and your challenge is to grab their attention with fewer words and visual appeal. So be concise, straight to the point, deliver the message, and be visual about it. Step 6 is how often to run your newsletter. Quite simply, no less than once every 3 months. You see, what many people don't realize is that if you are not keeping in regular contact with your clients, they are no longer your clients. Another company will soon come in and make them feel special. By keeping in contact with them on a regular basis, you ensure that they remain loyal to you and always keep you on top of their mind. If your only concern is the amount of time it will take to put your newsletter together, then you should get your team to share the workload or co-source the copywriting or outsource it totally. It might even be an idea to get your team to be editors on a rotation basis, where once a year or once a month or once a quarter, a different team member puts it all together as a project. They would have to chase up the stories, the videos, the pictures, and put them all together. And you would then simply have to, put the ads, the offers, look over what they've done, review it, and then get it dispatched. This would be an effective way to take the burden off you, Mr. Business Owner, and still have the newsletter going out. Step 7. What else you need to think about when planning for your newsletter success, and what you shouldn't be doing? Once you're happy with your newsletter strategy, content, etc., run through it and make sure you are ready to get started. Here are a few things you may not have thought of. Production. Make sure you check everything before publishing. Ask for a proof reading, finished copy from a copywriter, and check it thoroughly. Don't let anything go out with spelling mistakes or, and it does happen. The wrong phone number or the wrong hyperlink or a broken hyperlink. Phone scripts. There's hundreds of cases where a newsletter made the phone ring off the hook, but the business owner saw very few sales at the end of the day. It's all to do with conversion. That is how many inquiries you turn into sales. You need a script, a version of what you say to encourage people to buy after they've read your newsletter. Just think about the best sales lines you've ever used and compile them into one typed up script. Make sure you tell your team to follow that script, test it, do role plays, rehearse it. Make sure in that script you ask a lot of open-ended questions. Now, what you should never do in your newsletter. You should never push your own moral or political views or political or personal beliefs. Second, you should never criticize your competition. Third, you should never talk about yourself. It's about the value that your e-zine brings to your readers. And four, You should never carry out personal vendettas against the competition. Now let's jump into the action plan. You can download this from the show notes on ibgr.network. Now, let's put it all into an action plan, an E-Zine success action plan. To begin, ask yourself the following questions. Step 1 of the action plan, what I am expert at. 2, who is my target audience? Do I have more than one? How can my E-Zine help my customers and prospects? What kind of information can I share that will impact my customers and help them solve problems? How do I want to reach my customers and leads? What value do I want to give my recipients? What do I want customers to do after they've read my E-Zine? To buy a product, to reorder, to click through, to schedule an appointment, to remember me as a good guy when it's time to reorder, to help them think in new ways, answer their concerns and questions, inform them, help them build their business, help them profit from the use of our products or services, etc. How many email names do I have on my list right now? And how can I grow this number? How many names do I expect to add this year so that I will reach more suspects, prospects, customers? How am I going to get those names? What is the expected frequency of my message? Will it be weekly, monthly, quarterly? Who are the people they will be in charge of the content and managing the database of emails and names? Who are the people responsible for your CRM? What are the tools available that you can manage this CRM? How much of the E-Zine do I want to subcontract? Next, move to brainstorming your E-Zine content. Here are some ideas about what your E-Zine might contain. Might contain tip of the week, mini tip Monday, for example. Article of interest and value to your readers. Personal message from the CEO or the general manager of your company. Answered questions from the audience. Guest articles from vendor, customer, or industry experts. Success stories. Quote of the week. A story about all information that others deemed as valuable. All information that's helpful to your customers. Information that help them build their business and help them make a profit or increase productivity. Next, move to selecting the right piece of software or marketing CRM that you and your team will be using to put together this E-Zine, designing it, writing the content, and eventually disseminate it in an automated fashion. While at it, make sure you select an automation system with minimum benefits as to having a database segmentation feature and database mining functionality. It has a personalization capability where you can merge text with variables like the first name, the last name, the business name, etc. Integration capability with other systems you use, like your website or your CRM or your calendar system. Consider ease of use and scalability of the system that you are going to select. Can you embed photos and videos in your newsletter? Does it have analytics and reporting capability? Again, testing and measuring is the key to business success. So you need to have this functionality to be able to test, measure, analyze. If you cannot tell who opened your newsletter, who clicked that call to action button, and who never read your newsletter or never opened it, you might be in the dark. So invest time and money in researching what is the best tool that you are going to use that will help you. Put a strategy, define your strategy in an automated manner, help you with the content, with the visuals, with the video, automate the whole process for you of automating your newsletter, testing and measuring the engagement and the impact your newsletter is delivering to you. You should be able to see who opened a specific call to action, who read the whole thing, who played a whole video, who went from the newsletter to your landing page, who did not fill a form, who submitted a form. So those tools are available at the moment because we live in a digital era where everything is possible to a certain point, and you can benefit from these while planning for your newsletter strategy. Don't let it be an ad hoc basis strategy. Integrate your newsletter with your lead generation and lead nurturing strategies, automated, and put the team on board and write it in a fun, concise manner, and let people know that by reading your newsletter, they will get something beneficial. This is why they should keep it. They shouldn't trash it. They shouldn't put you on the spam list. Now, Jeffrey Gitomer said, you don't earn loyalty in a day. You earn loyalty day by day. Are you delivering a content of value to your customers, to your suspects, to your prospects, or just hoping they become loyal? See, a newsletter is a tool in your lead nurturing toolbox that you should plan on using if you're not using. So plan for it, use it properly. It will eventually open wallets for you, but you have to be patient and you have to trust the nurturing process. Next week, we will talk about another topic is how to increase, the opening rate of your emails, what to say, what not to say. Try not to miss it. And if you miss it, you can always listen to the recorded podcast. You have been listening to Buying Customers on IBGR Network. I am your business and executive coach, Gabi Awad. See you next.